Ha, what's that? I don't look like a berserker. No, you don't. Not a bit. Not at all. Well, excuse me, princess. Rebirth. It was a good life. I have no regrets. None worth mentioning at any rate. I had a good time. Won the war. Saved my friend. Got married. Became Hokage. Started a family. Raised plenty of kids. I outlived them all in the end. But still, I died happy. I got to see my grandchildren grow up and have kids of their own. That's the vaunted Uzumaki vitality for you. If you don't die in battle, you're going to get older. Nope, it wasn't a bad life. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Because of that, I was able to see the world grow into a peaceful utopia. No more madmen? No risk of war breaking out. I can rest easy now. Maybe I should just do that. Leave it to the younger generations. There's a few young upstarts in that lot, of course, there always are. But I have faith that cooler heads will prevail. Yeah, I've done enough. Everyone's waiting for me. Still, is it wrong that I don't want to rest? These old bones of mine don't want to lay down just yet. I may be the only left of my generation, but going out like this just feels wrong somehow. Huh? Why the long face? It's not like me to just die quietly, you know. I may be old, but I'm not that old. I don't want to die in my sleep like the others. No, I want to go out with a bang. With laughter in my ears, and a smile on my face. What? Another adventure. I wouldn't mind that at all. Not like I got anything better to do. At last, Jean Rum watched the circle before her burn scarlet, and felt her heart burn with pride. At last, success! Her preparations had been excruciating, her timing painstakingly precise. She'd acted at the exact moment the winds were at their highest, when her magic stood at its peak. All her calculations were precise. She didn't care which class she summoned, if she managed to avoid the unpredictable berserker stigma. So long as she whose talents complemented hers, that was all that mattered. A servant with a wind affinity would be perfect, given the nature of her abilities. Yes, that would suit her expectations indeed. Arise! She finished her lengthy incantation with a triumphant shout. Guardian of the heavenly scales! Sparked by her command, the wind picked up, blasting her hair backward. Such phenomena was within Jean's expected calculations, of course. A moment of silence passed as she waited with bated breath. Then came the explosion. A pillar of golden crimson radiance erupted from the circle all at once, throwing Jean her rear and dashing her glasses from her face. What in the world? If the mere summoning of her servant could create a storm of this magnitude, then she'd truly chosen very well indeed. Most would have balked as the skies darkened overhead. Others would cringed as the mighty gale spawned a towering tornado that sundered nearby trees and plunged the clearing into darkness. Jean did not fear the shadows, nor the storm. She had seen far worse in her career as a magi. The darkness in humanity's heart put any form of nature to shame. Still, there was a certain savage beauty to be seen in the storm. A distant, detached part of her wondered if it would consume her. Even now she felt her feet dragging, threatening to lift her into the air at any moment. And then, as abruptly as the storm had come, so too did it fade. Stealing her very soul, Jean awaited a response. Bleary eyes trained into the thick smoke. Slowly, something stirred within. These next few moments were crucial for Jean. Not only would they determine the nature of her relationship with her servant, but they may well affect her chances of success in the battles to come. This Holy Grail war would be most unlike the others after all, perhaps the first and last of its kind if Igmalenia had their way. Trifus was a large place indeed, and she'd have to work with others magi at that. Although the idea of mutual cooperation toward a goal rankled Jean somewhat, She knew that it must be put aside until the black faction was dealt with. Then, perhaps, there would be time for her wish. Doubtless, they would all turn on one another in time once the goal was within their grasp. Still, the association had its expectations of her, and she aimed to fulfill them. She was being paid handsomely for this endeavor after all. No doubt her efforts would prove fruitful. For now, it was critical that she'd summoned a strong contender for the war to come. For now, she would hold her tongue, await a response, and try not to look like an utter idiot in the face of her new companion. Yes, companion. Anyone who viewed such a fantastical being as a familiar was a fool in her eyes. Well, movement. Blurred figure in bright colors stepped out of the haze and shifted into her field of vision. Well now, a loud boyish voice exclaimed, "What do we have here?" Jean's face flushed with 1,000 shades of shame. If only she had her glasses to see them. Perhaps her servant could... "Here," the newcomer rumbled abruptly. "I'm guessing these are yours." Thus, it came as something of a surprise when her lost spectacles were inexplicably returned to her. As she looked, still squinting against the dust and grit in her eyes, the figure extended an arm and pressed her lost frames onto her face. Rough, calloused fingers brushed her face. Jean's mind blanked to white. She no longer had it in her to move in that moment. With infinite gentleness, her servant adjusted her glasses in swift yet deft movements. And then, apparently satisfied with their work, stepped back with a satisfied grunt. Almost immediately, their own visage swam into crystal clear clarity. "There," he bobbed his head. "That should do, master." "You..." The sound reactivated Jean's frazzled psyche, and she hastened to correct the battered rims as best she could. Frantic, the magus scrambled back to her feet. Dirtied hands palmed her dress with needless haste, desperate to focus on anything but that surreal experience she'd just endured. She almost couldn't bear to look at the being who was clearly her servant. How could he? She'd never been touched like that before, ever. By anyone. It might seem strange for an accomplished magus and killer to be flustered so, but therein lay the truth. Jean Rum was embarrassed, right and proper. More so when she finally mustered up the resolve to look at him. With a jaw-popping yawn, her servant stretched his arms to the heavens. Much better. Feels good to be young again. Bright blue eyes, the color of endless skies, gazed back at her, framed by whiskered cheeks, wild saffron hair, and a smile like sunshine. A cloak the color of dark honey hung over their shoulders, sheltering the dark crimson and black vestments worn beneath it. Upon his back lay a giant scroll of unknown origin, secured by a single strap to his shoulders. Jean felt her hopes plummet at the sight of him. Her first thought was that she'd made a mistake, and summoned assassin rather than one of the top-tier classes. Oh, this was just the worst. She silently prayed she was wrong. "If it's about your wish, don't worry. I've got the gist of it thanks to the throne," he hummed, folding both arms behind his head before she could speak up. "I don't really have a wish of my own. I'm just in this for fun." That didn't reassure Jean. Not at all. Not one bit. "And you are," she managed through clenched teeth. Oh, you mean me. Right. Sorry, this is still kinda new to me." He grinned, knuckling his forehead like a churlish child. "Let's see, what were the words?" There they are." Laughing, he coughed into a fist to clear his voice. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Class, Berserker, at your service? I ask of you, are you my master?" Damn. His simple remark, innocent smile, as well as those words, knifed straight through Jean's heart. That look, that smile, that expression of absolute trust. It was more deadly than a poison knife, too good, too pure. But he was a berserker. This was the worst possible matchup for her. Just how young was he? He barely looked to be out of his teens. Was he even? She wanted to laugh. She wanted to cry. She wanted to shake him and all but demand her catalyst back. Of course, she could do none of these, so she was left with only one option. In the end, slump. Irk, she managed eloquently. Really, it was all she could think to do. Did you not hear me, master? Naruto blinked, confused. I said my name is... No, she groaned. I heard you, it's just... You don't look like one. Naruto's right eye twitched at her offhand remark, ever so slightly. Ha! What's that? You mean I don't look like a berserker? No, Jian exploded. You don't. Not a bit. Not at all. Well, excuse me, princess. This one is dangerous. Shiru paid his servant's concern no heed. Ah, it's a pleasure to finally meet you, Berserker of Red. Naruto eyed the extended hand with vague interest. Almost imperceptibly, his gaze narrowed. Noted. We're leaving, Jian. Huh. Wait a second now. I think I like you. Atalanta sputtered in surprise. What nonsense is this? Enough. You're going to pay for everything you said about me and my master. Lancer frowned. You can't possibly win. Berserker grinned. Turned his head, slowly. You're missing the point. His entire body seemed to pulse with otherworldly radiance, as though lit from within. Gold vied with crimson, wild prana warring for a dominance within his body. While neither triumphed, the tension continued to rise. Veins throbbed in his forehead and neck, his appearance becoming more and more feral as Lancer looked on. Indeed, those once gentle red eyes held a decidedly slitted look to them now, wide and nearly euphoric with demented glee. Not just that, his very presence felt unstable, cracks of energy bursting beneath the skin with wild abandon. Surely he wouldn't continue this, not unless he intended to. Too late, he realized. No. Yes! The explosion hit a heartbeat later. That's no servant she's summoned. That thing is a monster. Oh, you sound as if you know him personally. I know his legend well enough. Can you kill him? Not alone. Butting heads. Atalanta felt her ears twitch. From her perch in the trees, she sensed Berserker's approach long before she saw him, heard him crashing through the undergrowth toward her position. One had but to listen. It had to be Berserker, or Saber at the very least. No other class exuded that kind of raw power. No one else could light up the night merely by being summoned to this plane of existence. With her superior senses, she didn't need to search for them. She intrinsically knew that they, whomever they were, would come for her. She wasn't making any effort to hide, after all. Part of her was silently grateful. She could have easily been summoned as Berserker herself thanks to her phantasm Agrius metamorphosis, Boar of divine punishment, yet she'd lucked out and manifested as Archer instead. Perhaps it was just her own wayward curiosity, but she wanted to see who had been inflicted with such a cruel fate. Trifa certainly didn't lack for vantage points in that regard. The trees provided perfect cover, allowing her to see. A bolt of gold shot past, shattering her reverie. Found you! A triumphant voice cried from just behind her flank. I thought I sensed someone lurking about out here. Years of honed instinct had her knocking an arrow in the voice's direction. One couldn't be sure if this was a servant of black. After all, but in the end, she needn't have bothered. A young man with wild blue eyes and a mop of messy golden hair lay crouched on the branch beside her, a red cloak thrown over his orange and black vestments. A scroll of massive proportions hung over his shoulders. As she looked on in quiet disbelief, he struck up a pose, rolled his head in a full circle, and thrust one hand forward. Had she been familiar with the hijinks of a certain perverted sage, she would have recognized the absurd stance and skewered him full of arrows. Thankfully, she did not. Berserker of Red Uzumaki, Naruto at your service, the young man declared boisterously, grinning at her. Judging by your bow, I'm guessing you're Archer. No, you're definitely Archer, right? What was this strange eagerness of his? It was like talking to a puppy. Straightening from her crouch, Archer frowned. You would abandon your master so easily, Berserker. Rest assured, my adorable little Magus is sound asleep, so I decided to step out and investigate. His smile didn't lessen in the slightest. If anything, it seemed to burn even brighter at her pointed remark. Trust me, she's perfectly safe. So, now that I've shown you mine, how about you show me yours, eh? It wasn't as if the OF was being terribly subtle about it. In the end, she replied, Archer of Red Atalanta. Nice to meet you, Naruto beamed. She didn't expect him to leap over to her, much less to extend a hand to her in friendship. Why take me at my word so easily? Warily, she eyed the offered limb. I could be lying. It's not like me to be so suspicious of people. Pearly white teeth flashed in a roguish grin, exposing sharpened canine teeth. There's really only one person I'm suspicious of, and you're nothing like him. So, if you claim to be Archer of Red, then you must be Archer of Red. And if by some chance you're actually lying to me, I'll kill ya. Problem solved. For a fleeting moment, the peerless huntress saw a beast stir in those blue eyes. Or were they red? She blinked, and like an errant shadow fleeing before the dawn, that brief glimmer of darkness vanished. Despite that faint glimpse of madness she'd experienced, Atalanta felt no fear. There could be little room for confusion in such a way of being. Indeed, part of her respected his line of thinking. What a simple way to live. What's your wish? Again, that sudden line of questioning. My wish? The huntress turned her head to regard the unlikely berserker. Don't you have one of your own? Nope, not at all, the blonde grinned. I'm just happy to have a second chance at life after losing mine. You could even say that simply behind here is my wish. And yours. This time, the follower of Artemis didn't hesitate. I wish for the salvation of all children. Seeing his baffled expression, she sighed and banished her bow, forsaking combat in her haste to explain her dream. That is to say, for them to be loved, that they might never know the pangs of loneliness, for them to never to hungry, to be loved and cherished. If the Grail can grant this, then I would have no regrets. Naruto actually blinked at that. Save them all, huh? Yes. The intensity of her response and expression nearly floored him. What's wrong with that? Sighing, the berserker scratched at his metal headband with finger. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but... Sad smile adorned those whiskered cheeks. It'll be difficult, you know. Even so, I must. There hadn't been so much as a glimmer of hesitation in her response. Indeed, how could there be? For her to state something so unreasonable might sound childish to most, but for one such as Atalanta, there could be no greater calling. If the Grail had the power to grant such a wish, then how could it not? It was a pure wish, distorted perhaps, but pure in its intentions nevertheless. She had no desire for fame, wealth, power, or even a second chance at life like him. Her sole desire was to save others, even if it meant being mocked, ridiculed, disdained, abhorred. They weren't so different, she and him. For a boy who'd experienced the hell that was loneliness, he knew better than most. You couldn't save everyone even if they were children. One was always suffering, somewhere in this world. Yet, here Atalanta was, trying to overturn that very reality with her own hands. Did that make her an idealist or a fool? Was such a wish possible? He supposed it might well be. From what he knew of the Holy Grail, it could indeed grant such a wish. Perhaps this was something to fight for. A better goal, a destination, rather than living for the sake of living or fighting for entertainment. Even if it wasn't something that could be achieved by one or two people, surely an all-powerful wish-granting device could. Regardless, her words lit a fire in him. Atalanta. Archer nearly fell off the bough and tumbled to the forest below. Such was the vehemence with which Berserker had spoken. Before she could snap at him in recompense for his temerity, the blonde clamped both hands on her shoulders and drew her into a firm embrace. Squirming in discomforted embarrassment, the huntress could only flail mutely, to no avail. His grip was iron, and she hadn't the strength to break free, let alone escape a firm hold like his. Still, what manner of madness was this? Why was he shouting and hugging her out of the blue? Had he lost his mind? I think I like you. Pulling away, Naruto gave her a gentle shake and laughed. Yosh, I've decided. That dream of yours. I'm going to help you achieve it. Atalanta sputtered in surprise. What nonsense is this? Just who are you to say such a thing? Who, me? The doppelganger grinned. I'm just a clone. Verdant green eyes narrowed. Clone? Oops. Shouldn't have said that. Bye-bye. With a grin, Berserker went up in a plume of smoke, leaving poor Atalanta to ponder what on earth just happened. Early the next morning. All right, I give up. What the hell are you taking me to church for, master? It was the first thing he'd said to her all afternoon. Jeanne staunchly ignored the voice in her head and kept walking, resuming her brisk pace toward the building in question. Even in astral form, he continued to rile her, not with words, but silence. She refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing her eye twitch. The bastard was just trying to get a rise out of her after last night. Yes, that was it. He wouldn't succeed. Jeanne Rum could be called many things as a magus. She was a killer, a bibliomaniac, and secretly a hopeless romantic at heart. But she had her pride. In the war to come, the latter seemed a small, petty thing indeed. Yet Berserker had wounded it all the same. Perhaps it was petty of her to withhold the reason for their presence here, but after their little spat, she was feeling a tad bit cross with her servant. Well, excuse me, princess. Where did he get off calling her that? How dare he? You'll just have to wait and see, Berserker. You're not still mad, are you? She turned up her nose. Is that a yes? Oh, for the love of... What did I do wrong? A swirl of wild golden dust swam around Jean's shoulders and rapidly assumed the shape of her servant even as he finished speaking. Naruto's manifestation proved so abrupt that she wasn't able to stop in time. When he abruptly barred her path, she tripped over her own 2 feet and slammed headlong in his chest. A dark-sleeved arm shot out and steadied her by the waist, cradling her closer. Far closer than necessary. Aha! There it was, that smile again. An infuriating gleam of white that brooked no trespass, and she found her resolve faltering at the sight of it. Will you stop? Batting his hand aside, Jeanne wriggled out of his grasp and stormed past him. All right, princess. Mind telling me what I did to upset you? Stop calling me princess. Eh? But it kinda suits you, you know. The young man drawled, trailing after her. Besides, I'm bored. When are we gonna see some action? If you're that restless, use your noble phantasm and scout out the city, she retorted waspishly, pausing to face her churlish servant fully. I don't need you for this. In truth, she only needed to register the 2 of them as participants in the ward and potentially cooperate with the other masters of the Red faction. Naruto's presence wasn't needed. He was better suited to combat in that regard. Spirits, she hoped he'd finally give in and listen to her. Instead, he grinned and trotted after her with an impish laugh. How do you know? I'm not using it now, oomph. He grunted as her elbows slammed his gut. Because you're still solid. Laughter greeted her. Geez, I felt that. One of his supposed noble phantasms involved the use of duplication, or so he claimed. A technique like that could be used to devastating effect if utilized properly, assuming she could ever get him to do so without use of a command spell. Why did she feel as though he was the master and she, the servant? Ugh, she wasn't getting anywhere like this. Indeed, it felt as though she were the one losing ground here. Perhaps she ought to give him an order, tell him to shut his mouth for the duration of the war. No. If things continued at this rate, she risked damaging her relationship with Berserker. To use them on frivolous things would be the height of fallacy. If he turned on her and she didn't have anything to hold him back. The thought sent a small shudder through her. Perhaps reconciliation was best after all. Perhaps that was childish of me, she sighed, shaking her head. You're forgiven. Just be on your best behavior in there. The last thing we want to do is make foes of the church. I have enough enemies already. No tricks from you. No pranks. Nothing. Understand? Naruto blinked. Why the long face? He beamed. I'm always on my best behavior, master. Cheeky little. You are aware that I still have 3 command spells I can use. She held up her marked hand for emphasis. Don't push your luck. Before her eyes, the whiskered warrior's face lost all color. Hey! He took half a step back. Master San Jimum. Wait, you wouldn't really use those on me, would you? For such a petty reason. Muscle jumped in Jean's jaw. Berserker, by the power of my command seal, I hereby order you to... Fine. Her servant flung up his arms in exasperation as they cleared the path to the church. Kill all the fun. Put the fun in camps, why don't you? I won't do anything. Jeez. Why did she feel like she just kicked an innocent puppy? Although I make no promises for later events. Never mind. She wanted to strangle him. With a groan, the magus pinched the brow of her nose in a vain attempt to stave off an impending migraine. In the same vein, she understood Naruto wasn't acting this way towards her out of spite. If anything, her servant was simply being lively. He didn't seem to understand why she was so angry with him in the first place, let alone hauling him off to church first thing in the morning. It wasn't even the inquiries that had annoyed her in the first place, rather, her lot in life. Such misfortune. She still couldn't believe she'd summoned such an unlikely berserker as her ally in this war. A different one, mind you, with his sanity apparently well in hand and several noble phantasms, besides, but a berserker still. One with seemingly no end of prana and a mouth to match. After witnessing the sheer overwhelming presence accompanying his summoning, well, she didn't want to see what set off his madness enhancement. And now, she was bringing him into an enclosed space. Oh, this could only end poorly. Oi, master. What? Finger thrust past her towards the church. We've got company, you know. Jean followed his gaze. And froze. Now, she was a monster specialized in combat, someone who removed the opposition without mercy. Yet in the shadow of this individual, this man, an icy shard of fear raced down her spine. A rough and fearsome-looking man awaited them near the entrance to the church, and the sight of him momentarily brought Jean up short. His mere presence carried with it a thick stench of blood and gunpowder emanating from his entire body. Dark sunglasses concealed his eyes, not so his wild brown hair. It spilled behind him in an unruly mane that he made no attempt to tame. He didn't flinch away from their approach. If anything, the sight of them seemed to intrigue him, and he turned openly to face them. Even if he hadn't, Jean would have recognized that distinctive scar on his visage. This face belonged to one of the few magi she genuinely respected, if not pitied for the strange hand fate had thrown him. One she'd worked with before at that. His was a face you didn't forget. Kairi Sisigu. Yo. The gruff man raised a hand, a small smile plucking at his weathered features. Long time no see, Jean. I heard you were part of the Red faction too, but... Then his gaze settled upon Naruto. So, this is your servant? Jean expected a scene. As such, she found herself almost pleasantly surprised when her normally recalcitrant servant nudged past her. Blue eyes traveled up and down, sizing the formidable necromancer up from head to toe. Whatever he found there must have pleased him, because he barked out a laugh. Nice to meet ya. The blonde beamed expressively, extending a hand. The name's Naruto. Why the hell did he just use his true name? Jean's head whipped around with such force that she nearly smacked herself in the face with her own ponytail. Berserker? What? The blonde pouted. We're on the same side, aren't we? Sides. He smells trustworthy. Berserker, huh? Sisigu actually blinked at that. After a moment's consideration, he accepted Naruto's hand and shook it. This is honestly the first time I've had someone call me something like that. Ha! A new voice intruded. What do you mean, master? He doesn't look like a berserker to me. A swirl of agitated prana heralded his servant's arrival, and releasing Sisigu, Naruto turned to face the newcomer. Oh. Unlike Berserker, this one stood clad entirely in gleaming silver armor with crimson accents. From head to toe, not a single piece of skin could be seen by the naked eye. A fearsome helmet concealed their face, that horned facade regarding them with frightening dispassion. This was Saber, then. It had to be, Jean reasoned. No other class save that could be so magnificently adorned or exude such majesty. Perhaps had she been able to see into her servant's mind, she would have seen the gears turning. Naruto, for one, immediately found himself fascinated by the armored warrior. That blank, featureless helm regarded them with a hint of annoyance. So much so that he momentarily forsook his place by his master's side and approached his fellow warrior. Are you sure you're not assassin? They repeated, deadpanning. You're scrawny-looking, weak. In the corner of Jean's peripherals, Berserker stiffened imperceptibly at the slight. Oi now, Sisigu sighed. Saber, don't go picking unnecessary fights. Alas, his admonishment proved itself too little too late. But, Master Ray. Kukuku, Naruto laughed suddenly, drawing all eyes to him. Indeed, he cackled like an old man, concealing his mouth with a curled hand. Saber, was it? That's funny, coming from one such as you. Oh no. Jean knew that look. That look meant nothing good. Eh? The warrior tilted their head. What's so funny? You say I'm assassin, yet you're the one hiding her face, Naruto retorted, still chuckling. I just find it funny. Are you that afraid of me, Saber-chan? Now it was Jean's turn to tilt her head. Dan. Sisigu swore. Shit. Saber twitched, just so. Oi, wanna say that again, bastard? Oh dear. Berserker replied with an impish grin, thumbing at his nose. Did you not hear me, Saber-chan? He let his syllables drag over the last word. I may be an old man at heart, but my senses are still sharp. To drive the point home, he sniffed once for emphasis. Whomever you are under that helmet of yours, you're definitely a girl. I don't know why you're trying to hide it, really. I've known plenty of strong women in my day, and none of them concealed their identities. And yet you've made every effort to hide yours. Which means you have something you don't want anyone to see. Yes, something to be ashamed of. Crunch. Muffled grunt heralded Naruto's abrupt departure from Jean's side. In the same instant, a distant building imploded upon itself. Throughout his little tirade, the saber of red had continued to twitch with increasing frequency. Within moments, she'd been outright quivering with rage. No one had seen her move until just now. Quiet. Suddenly, she'd snapped. That does it. Before Jean's very eyes, Saber's menacing helmet inexplicably folded inward upon itself to reveal her concealed face. Aqua green eyes burned with fury, framed by flaxen hair bound back behind her head, and a full mouth set in a dangerous snarl. Jean had but a moment to behold the young woman's savage beauty, before the now unmasked warrior loosed a bestial snarl, gathered both legs beneath her, and leaped. The subsequent wave of pressure shattered the street and launched Saber forward at near-explosive speeds, though admittedly far slower than her last punch had proven. As both masters looked on in silent exasperation, a distant cloud of smoke heralded her own landing, near where she'd launched him. Damn, Shizuku muttered. Should have warned him about that. Jean's sweat dropped slightly. Warned him about what? Saber isn't very fond of being called a girl. Distant explosion echoed his words. Aren't you going to stop her? Necromancer shrugged. It'd be a waste of a command seal. She'll calm down soon enough. If your Berserker is half the servant I think he is, he'll be fine. For a fleeting sliver of a second, Jean wondered if Saber had actually managed to kill Berserker with that attack. Indeed, she shivered at the thought. Anyone who wielded such power couldn't be called human. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Such was the unknowable existence that was as a servant. A faint crackle of thunder followed by a distant streak of scarlet and gold told otherwise. As she looked on, a bolt of light arced across the sky like a thunderbolt thrown by Zeus himself, wild and arching in its path. Was this a noble phantasm, or... With a faint flicker of golden light, Berserker reappeared, his coat slightly singed, but otherwise relatively unharmed. A black eye and a red stain on his shoulder revealed where he'd been struck by a saber. Yet, even as she looked on, those wounds healed, as though time itself were being undone. Oi, master. I'd step back if I were you, he catcalled. I'm pretty sure she's right behind me. Oops. Damn trickster, hold still. Scarce had he spoken than Saber crashed down behind him, brandishing her bloodied blade like a lance. Hey, that last attack tickled, Naruto grinned, idly dusting his coat down. Wanna try again? He immediately ducked as she lobbed her blade at his head. Oi, say that shit again, Mordred snarled. I dare ya. Again, Berserker mimicked darkly. I dare ya. Snarling, the two blondes butted heads. You wanna go for real, Whiskers? Bring it on, Ponytail? Fine by me. Great. Ha! Naruto was already in motion by the time she struck out again. Careful! You'll poke an eye out. Rather than twist out of the blade's path, he grabbed the edge of her weapon and heaved it toward the center of his body mass. A fraction of a second later, and Mordred's momentum caught up with her arm, tugging her helplessly along behind it. Aqua eyes narrowed as she realized what he intended. The bastard was pulling her forward by the blade with the intent to slug her in the face, thereby forcing her to either release, set hilt and strike out at him, or hold on tight and risk a debilitating blow. Well, she'd show him. See how the bastard liked to headbutt when he tried to yank her weapon out of her. Wrong. The Knight of Rebellion had time for a single startled yelp before Naruto ignored her blade completely, forsaking defense and allowing the blade to bite deep into his stomach, then emerge out his back in a grisly red spray. If Naruto was at all fazed by the towering blade jutting from his stomach, he did little to show it. With his free hand he lunged forward past her, and seized a fistful of her hair. Blue eyes burned before her vision. No, not blue, she realized without mounting disbelief. They'd turned red when she wasn't looking. And ow! Round. Breath burst out of her lungs as Berserker whipped her face first into the earth by the hair. The sheer force of it ripped the air out of her lungs, and she coughed, momentarily winded. Instead of finishing her off, however, a booted foot filled her vision, nudged her side, rolled her over. A grunt echoed, punctuated by a wet, squelching sound as her opponent tore her blade free. Moments later, it clattered to the floor, just out of her reach. Even as she grasped at her blade, aqua eyes regarded the wound, that gaping hole staring down at Mordred in crimson relief. No, not a hole. To her dismay, the wound simply unwound itself, revealing healthy pink skin. Okay, I get the point. Ha! Point, that's rich! Her boot caught him in the chest and he stumbled back, laughing. What are you, a zombie? Mordred snarled. How the hell are you still standing? Oi! Ah, just like a lover whose blood is boiling with passion. A stark, cultured voice interjected before he could finish. Yes. That's the way. Fight to your heart's content. This will make a fine prologue. All eyes, master and servant alike, turned toward this fresh voice. A horse, they cried. A horse! My kingdom for a horse! Groaning, Mordred clambered wearily upright. In the end, Berserker beat her to it. Who the hell are you? Please, my lord, your words break my heart. Continue as you were. Instead of another warrior, they found themselves staring at a foppishly dressed man. A bearded fellow, clad in extravagant clothes to match. With quill in hand, he hastily scrawled into a book, documenting everything, all that he saw, and reproducing it as a grand play. He cared not a whit for the weapons leveled at him. Indeed, he appeared ignorant to their very existence. In his mind, all that existed was the story, the pen. A true tragedy was even now being slavishly written, as all words must be wrought. Mordred's eye twitched. Oi, who the hell gave you permission to write about us, you damned hack? To write? Nay? How can you spout such drivel? You wound me. The man staggered back as though he'd been physically struck. I am merely recording this grand tale as it unfolds. An affront to my works is an affront to myself. Shakespeare. Jean's eye twitched. I don't even know how to respond to that. Why are you here? To observe, of course. The now-named servant sketched an extravagant bow. Such wit! Such drama! How could I, as caster of red, resist recording such an opportunity? Please, continue as you were, Irk. Brick sailed out of Naruto's hand and collided with the poet's skull. With that, the last of the tension drained out of the street and those inhabiting it. I think that's enough, don't you, Saber? Shizuku sighed. He's learned his lesson by now. Oi, master, Whiskers started it. Want me to finish it? Why, We're on the same side, the necromancer drawled. Don't go killing your allies. Berserker, the same applies to you, Jean quipped. That's an order. Naruto and Mordred exchanged a terse, angry glance. For a moment, just a moment, Jean worried. Then, to the dismay and disbelief of all parties present, both blonde burst into laughter. Naruto extended a hand, and this time Mordred firmly grasped it. Hauling herself to her feet, the battered knight used his body as a pillar to stand. Upon doing so, she immediately slapped an armored hand against the ninja's unarmed back, staggering him. For his part, the berserker laughed the blow off and returned her blade to her. Saber accepted it gladly, planting it tip first in the street for support. What the hell was that punch back there, Whiskers? That shit hurt. I could say the same thing about that kick. You're crazy. We've got to do this shit again later. No holding back. You read my mind. Name the time and place. That aside, how the hell are you alive? Well, I've got crazy regeneration. No kidding. So, about Caster. Berserker offered a grin. Well, we could... As the unlikely allies continued their equally unlikely conversation, both their masters could only gawk. Mere moments ago, Saber and Berserker had, for all intensive purposes, tried to kill one another. That they were now squabbling over the time and place of their rematch as well as trading friendly insults was a tad disconcerting, all things considered. An unstoppable force had met an immovable object, and in the end, neither had yielded. Indeed, it seemed both parties were better off for their little Sparticides. In the end, Shizugu was the one to recover his voice first. Wait, did they just become friends now? Jean palmed her face in a fit of bleak dismay. He's an unlikely berserker after all. Shizugu shrugged. Might as well go in together then. With a grunt, the scarred man turned and wrested the doors to the church open. The sudden sound of rusted hinges immediately captured their attention. Oi, Berserker! Saber, he called. Stop tying up Castor. We're going. Wait a minute. Don't get ahead of us. A humble cathedral awaited them within, its candles unlit, its many pews empty. Before the altar, a lone man knelt, his head bowed in benediction. Naruto clicked his tongue softly at the sight. Churches had never sat well with him, nor did the idea of a higher power. He'd fought one goddess already. He didn't relish the idea of charging headlong facing another. Less so the sight of the man clad in dark robes at the foot of the altar. With his back to him, he couldn't see his face, but that crop of unruly white hair still stirred something in him. Anxiety. This is the designated place, Shizugu began roughly. Were you the one who called us? Silently, the kneeling man rose, turned to face them. Greetings, he welcomed them with a small smile. I am the supervisor of this war, Shiro Katamin. Humbly, the priest sketched a small bow towards each of them and shook their hands. Towards one individual above all the others and the rest. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Berserker of Red. Naruto eyed the extended hand with vague interest. Almost imperceptibly, his gaze narrowed. Looking back, he couldn't say what it was that made him distrust the priest. Perhaps it was his smile. Maybe it had something to do with his eyes. It might even have been the hair, who knew? Regardless of the case, he didn't believe the young man, nor did he trust him. There was just an air about him, a curious aloofness behind his smile that reminded him of an old enemy he'd once fought in the past. This priest radiated the same sensation as that one. Ah, so this was what it felt like to experience fear again. He'd almost forgotten after all these years. In the end, it saved both their lives. Noted. We're leaving, Jean. Huh. Wait a second now. What you doing? Berserker bolted to her feet and spun around, the motion scattering the flowers at her feet. Enemy. Destroy. Crush. Kill. Hey. Whoa. Stop you. The Berserker of Red flung up his hands as she leveled her weapon. I'm not here to fight today. I come bearing gifts. Ernie. Fran tilted her head. Hand shot out, presenting a bouquet of flowers. For you. The two of you are more alike than you know. Atalanta's ears twitched. Berserker. The blonde stirred from his meditative crouch, a gold eye creaking open. Need something? May I join you? Sure. Plenty of room. After a moment's consideration, Archer claimed a space beside him. Oi, don't pull my hair, Berserker. Ah, but your ponytail's just so fluffy. I can't resist. And yet you get so mad when anyone calls you a wah. Mordred growled. I will gut you. I'm never alone. Jean smiled softly. Banzai databeo. That was all Castor heard before a cackling berserker dropped out of the sky and hammered him into the ground feet first. Oh, hell no. I'm not killing a kid. Jack blinked. Mommy. I'd prefer Big Brother, honestly. A wide, beatific smile blossomed on her face. Really, we've never had a big brother before.